Check your hair. Hello, everyone. We're here live webinar for the Startup Visa, a conversation with Launch Academy. Dragana, do you see the number of attendees? Are we currently on stage?
Yes, I can see there is 80 people right now.
Okay. So I don't have that option, but I already see people saying hi. So hi, Nadal. Hi, Jubin. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. It's great that you're joining us today. Where are you joining from? Let us know. Oh, hi from Dubai. Our guest is actually also close to that. Brampton, UK, London, Ontario, Toronto. Welcome, everybody. We're very happy to have you join. Dra, can you give me an update about the number of people we have?
Yes,
we'll be starting in a few minutes.
Yeah, currently we have 90 people.
We have 89. Great. So let's wait for a few minutes for more people to join. I think as soon as we hit 100, we can get started. We have more than 310 people registered, so we're really excited to share all the knowledge that our guest is bringing here today. So just to let everyone know, we're going to be starting in a few minutes, and then our guest is going to be speaking. We're going to have a conversation, a very nice conversation with our guest. And then there is a section on the right side where you can include your questions, and we would be selecting a few of these to answer in our Q&A at the end. Okay, so highly encouraged for all of you to add questions on the right side. And thank you everyone for joining, for registering, for supporting our webinars and our events. We're really grateful for that.
Almost 100.
Okay, great. Hi, Vishal. How's it going? It's good to see you here as well. Good morning, Muga.
Hello, Vishal.
Great. Dra, as soon as you give me the red light, I'll be ready to get started.
Currently 100. So
100? Okay, yeah. Great. So Dra, if you want, you can mute yourself and we'll get started. Great. So we already have 100 people attending and more. It's a number that's growing. Like I said before, we have more than 310 people registered. So we're hoping to have at least 160 or 200 people attending. At the end of the live webinar, our recording is going to be sent to all of you who attended and registered as well. So be on the lookout for that email from me or from Livestorm. Great. And just to confirm, we're going to be having a very nice conversation with our guest. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, there is a section on the right side where you can add those questions, and we'll select a few to go over them and have our guest answer them. Okay, let's get started. The Startup Visa, a conversation with Launch Academy. So my name is Marianella Manzur. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing at Joorney Business Plans. We are a company that specializes doing business plans for immigration and for other purposes, such as raising capital, financing, and more. We are a global company consisting of 3 offices. We have an office in the US, we have an office in Canada, and also one in France. We have a team of more than 80 people preparing more than 3,000 business plans a year. Our Canadian office is focused in developing business plans for federal programs such as the Startup Visa. At Joorney, we offer business plans, pitch decks, and financial modeling for our clients and partners. First of all, we have some members of our team. We have Petar, Uros, and Tanya on the sales side, who many of you have already met, and also Rachel and Dragana from our marketing team. Thank you for everything you do to make this happen, guys. It really means a lot to me. So today, our topics for this webinar will be somewhat different, since the designated organization we will be speaking to has very specific requirements regarding the industry and the stage of the business itself. Since they focus mainly on technology and on companies that are already financially stable, this can provide a valuable information to many of you to understand what they require from applicants to be eligible to request a letter of support. It may be insightful to know who the right profile may be to apply and who may not. For this will save some time and effort during the process of getting the letter of support as well. It's important to point out that Joorney does not provide any legal services or is involved in getting letters of support for applicants. We welcome our guests with the objective of giving our clients and partners valuable information on different topics related to the Startup Visa in Canada. We are very grateful to have you all join today, and we are excited to present our guest, who is the CEO of a premier tech hub, incubator, and accelerator located in Vancouver. They are Launch Academy. I would like to introduce our main guest, Ray Walia from Launch Academy. Welcome, Ray. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really appreciate you guys putting this together, and I'm excited to talk to your audience and hopefully share some insight that they find valuable.
Wonderful, Ray. Thank you for being here. I know that you're currently in Dubai, so maybe the video may be a little bit on and off, but the audio is working fine. So we're ready to get started. I want to say that Ray Walia is a serial entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in both entertainment and technology sectors. Ray founded Launch Ventures, which owns and operates a network of proprietary accelerators, innovation labs, and investment funds. The most prominent incubator is Launch Academy, Western Canada's leading entrepreneurship facility, which has worked with more than 6,000 entrepreneurs, of which 300 have grown their startups to seed and Series A stage and raised over $1.5 billion in funding. Launch Academy is a designated provider for the Canadian Startup Visa program. Ray has invested in more than 30 startups, either personally or through his funds, and was named Entrepreneur Mentor of the Year for 2014 and 2015, BIV Top 40 Under 40, G20 Young Entrepreneur, BC Tech Person of the Year finalist in 2018, and one of the 500 most influential business leaders in British Columbia for 2021. So we're very, very lucky to have you here, Ray. Let's hear it for Ray. Great, Ray. So, well, let's get started with the basics. Can you tell us about Launch Academy?
Yeah, so Launch Academy, we're a nonprofit. So that's one of the things that make us a little bit unique, is that we don't take equity in the companies that we work with. Launch Academy was started in 2012. It was myself and my 4 other co-founders. We were building our own tech companies, and we just wanted to be around each other because we knew how much we would leverage each other's relationships and experience. And I always say misery loves company. So when you're an entrepreneur, it's a very tough journey. And so we wanted to be around other people that understand what we're going through, that we can leverage and work off of. And we had a space. The story is 12, 12, 12, 12. We started in 2012 with just 12 desks. Obviously, 4 of us were taking those 4 of the desks. And then we said, okay, well, there's 8 extra desks. Who else wants in? And the demand was really high. And we're like, okay, well, this is something that we could actually make something of value and give back to the community. And so fast forward 12 months later, in 2011, we had over 12,000 square feet filled with entrepreneurs. and so quickly became the epicenter for entrepreneurship in Vancouver. And then through the last 10 years, we've, as you said, 6,000 companies raised, 300 of those have raised up to $2 billion now. That number keeps going up. I think we got three unicorns in our stable. But more importantly, we do other events and activities that span across North America. So we run Traction Conference, which is one of the top 10 tech marketing conferences in North America. We do private CEO dinners for the tech industry across North America. So Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco. We're expanding to Austin, Miami, New York. We just did one last month in Mexico, our first international dinner. And then we do these trade missions that I'm on like right now in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, trying to just spread the word of technology industry in Canada and all the great Canadian government programs that you can take advantage of if you were to open up offices and expand your business into Canada. And of course, Startup Visa is one of the most popular things that people around the world want to talk about.
This is wonderful, Ray, because you're not only like bringing your own experience, you're an entrepreneur yourself, you're an investor yourself, and you're helping people like through the same path. So it's a little bit of a different format than other designated organizations may have, where you're bringing in all this knowledge and your personal experience, your personal networking, and how you did it to show others how it can be done in North America, right?
Yeah, and one of the things we always say, Launch Academy is for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. So all the programming, all the resources that we bring to the table are what we ourselves use for our companies. And I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm still building other businesses. Like we have the Innovation Lab where we're building a platform for the sports and entertainment industry using blockchain technology. It's kind of DeFi, digital, decentralized finance platform. And so it's a constant evolving platform and program because we ourselves are constantly seeing the tools and resources that we need to build our companies evolving as well. And so we adjust accordingly.
Exactly. And we're gonna hear more about what you're working on currently, but it's not only like basic innovation, basic technology. We're talking about cutting edge, breakthrough, impacting projects that are going through Launch Academy right now.
Yes.
Great. So Ray, we have within our attendees, we have different types of people. We have a lot of immigration consultants. We have a lot of immigration lawyers, and we also have people who are interested in applying for the Startup Visa. So I wanted to go a little bit back to basics and ask you if you can give a brief overview of what the Startup Visa program is.
I can actually give you a really deep explanation because the Startup Visa program was actually started at Launch Academy. So it was started in, I'll give you a brief history. Like it was started in 2010 as a project where there was a company called Sumify. Sumify was a news aggregator online that eventually got acquired by Twitter. And so Sumify, there was two Romanian entrepreneurs. They tried to immigrate to the US. They had immigration problems. They came to Canada. There was a venture group called Boot Up Labs. They were going to invest in them and position them in Canada, but they had immigration problems in Canada as well. And the investors are all Canadian, and these are notable names: Boris Wirtz, Mike Edwards, Jason Bailey, Debbie Landa. They wanted to help these entrepreneurs stay in Canada and build their company in Canada. But because of the immigration issues, Twitter, once they acquired them, said, no, it's just easier for us to just move you back to the US and we'll get you your proper visas through our means. But if you look at it from the lens of, okay, well, if they did have their Canadian visas, guess what? That acquisition would have been a Canadian company getting acquired, and that company would have been the first Twitter office in Canada. And that was 2011, or yeah, I think it was 2010, 2011. And so that would have changed the tech landscape significantly. And so these entrepreneurs came together and said, look, we have to petition the government. There's too many opportunities for us to attract these great entrepreneurs and bring them to Canada and have kind of like a steroid injection to our tech ecosystem or countrywide that we need to see. And so they successfully created a pilot program with the government. The very first three companies actually came through Launch Academy, even though we weren't the designated entity, it was through GrowLab. And so the whole nature of the program, and it's evolved since, has been about how do you bring in great entrepreneurs, but from a Canadian government's perspective, put the due diligence and put the screening on the shoulders of the experts that know best. And so the startup visa has 3 tiers. There's the venture capital tier, where if an accredited venture capitalist, or sorry, designated venture capitalist, designated by the Canadian government to be authorized to give support letters, invest more than 200,000 in your company, then they can give you a support letter and you can go get your work permit and your permanent residency. Then there's the angel tier. And so that's an angel investor or an angel group. They need to invest a minimum $70,000. Obviously, the tiers are different because a VC is investing in larger stake, later stage rounds. Angels are earlier stage and it's their own money. And then there's the accelerator incubator stream. And the accelerator incubator stream, sometimes there's an equity stake, sometimes there's a cash injection. But at the end of the day, both of them are really designed to put a company through a program. And so the accelerator and incubator stage is all about, if you've been accepted into program that's been approved by the Canadian government to be a representative of the designated startup visa provider, then you can access the work permits and the residency. And typically, the VCs and the angels don't like doing this program because that's not their business. They don't go around the world hunting for companies that want to come to Canada, whereas accelerators and incubators do. And that's why today you see far more activity in that stream than the other two. But it's also a factor of if you just give them a support certificate and you leave the rest on to the entrepreneur to figure out, that's not really the best experience for these entrepreneurs. And that's why these programs tend to be the more favored ones, because there's a lot more support services in there for the entrepreneurs. And quite frankly, all the VCs that we know, they just send the companies our way to launch Canada because they know, hey, I'll invest in you as a company, but I'd want some of that money going to this program to get you here, but knowing that it's probably going to save you hundreds of hours of you trying to do it yourself, and it's going to make your life that much easier, less stressful, and I'm going to ultimately have a better entrepreneur and a more stable company at the end of the day that I'm investing in, as opposed to leaving it to you yourself.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. That actually answers a few of the questions that we had at Joorney, because a lot of the business plans that we're developing are usually through like people who are going to get a letter of support from an incubator or from an accelerator. So we do get a few projects that are going to present their projects to VCs and angels, but we were under the impression that the reason why that wasn't happening was because that was maybe a more challenging route. But what you're explaining makes perfect sense, right? And,
yeah.
I'm glad to know. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you look at the type of companies that have venture capitalists and even angel, this has always started off as a tech stream, so tech companies. Obviously, that has changed a bit, and it can change even further. But the true nature of it was a tech company. And so when you're looking at the VC round and even at the angel round, those companies have a lot more substance to them, right? The VC is going to invest in a Series A or Series B round, and that means that the company has traction, it's got validation, it's got a proven business model, and so it's past that business plan stage. Whereas the angel investor may make earlier stage investments, but again, most often not, they're coming in after the friends and family round, after a business plan's been done. And when you get to the incubators, they're the ones where, okay, they're an incubator. That's their job, is to take people with ideas and help them try to build a business model around it, update the whole process. And we have our own early stage program. We don't apply it for a startup visa. Our startup visa program is Maple, but we have your Launch Your Startup program. Launch Your Startup, we know most of the entrepreneurs that we come across, they have an idea. And that idea is typically a solution to a problem that they may have faced at some point in their life, or something that they've seen other people struggle with. But most often or not, they don't really understand the true problem. And that's what you need to have to dig in. It's like, what is that core problem? And is that solution you have in your head a a vitamin or a painkiller? Is it just something that masks the pain, or does it actually solve that pain? If it doesn't solve that pain, is it something that needs to be tweaked, modified, or you need a totally different solution altogether? And then you get into customer validation, prove that people actually want to use that product, but more importantly, people want to pay you for that product. If it's not them paying, can somebody else pay for it? And that's the incubator. Like, you have to go through all these iterations. There is no magic bullet. Like, even when you write a business plan, I'm pretty sure you have multiple revisions because they discover something, or they've talked to a strategic partner and realize, oh, this actual process that we had thought would solve this needs to be revised, and it has to look like this, which then changes the economics, and now the business model needs to be changed, right?
Exactly.
And so that's why, like, the business model or the business plans typically will be most in demand at the incubator stage.
Correct. Definitely, Ray. And well, first of all, I wanted to congratulate you for being part of how the startup visa started. That's a great like anecdote. And definitely, like, pointing back to the basics of the startup visa. It's something that it's a program that Canada, or a visa that Canada created to bring in talent from other parts of the world and make sure that they can be comfortable in North America and launch their projects here, or accelerate their projects here with designated organizations such as Launch Academy. So going back to a little bit of the basics, Ray, what are the program's basic requirements? What is the startup visa looking into to bring in that talent?
Yeah, and so this is Startup Visa, the government program that everybody is ultimately adhering to. And so when you look at the accelerators and incubators, even the VCs and angels, they have their own business models of how they work with companies. And so let's not confuse the two. Like, we will talk about Maple program, which is our program that we run the companies through, but the Startup Visa is one component of that. And so startup, like, there's other immigration paths that people can take. There's global skills entry, there's express entry, there's intercompany transfers, and there's startup visa, which is primarily founders, and it's by far the most popular. And from my discussions around the world, it's probably one of the most powerful startup visa programs in the world, because it applies to up to 5 founders, plus spouses, plus children, can all access work permits or study permits, typically within a 4 to 8 month time frame. It does get earlier because, or it used to be earlier because of non-COVID time, but now process times have gone up. We're hoping that those come back down. But all those people are also eligible for permanent residency within a 12 to 16 month time frame. And again, that used to be 6 months, and now that it's out of pilot, the demand's gone up and the system's been a little bit overtaxed, and it's gone up 12 to 16 months. They have changed the processing to be online, like they do with Express Entry, and so they're hoping that that time frame comes down. But what you do have to do is you need to make sure that whatever the makeup of the founder, whether it's 2 founders, 5 founders, 1 founder, those founders need to own a minimum of 10% each of the Canadian company, and collectively more than 50%. And so if there's 6 founders and 5 of them are applying in the startup visa and the 6th one is not, or the 6th one's a Canadian, you still need to make sure that the 5 together collectively own more than 50% of the company. So if you have 5 that own less than 50%, they don't qualify for startup visa. And if anyone owns less than 10%, again, they don't qualify for startup visa. Also, they have to be active participants in the company. So this is not applicable to investors that are making investment and trying to skirt along and get the permanent residency through that means. It does not apply to employees that had just recently signed up with the company. Its true intention is to bring the founders of the company, people that are really key, instrumental people of the organization. And then all of them still need to meet the regular immigration requirements, and that's the economic thresholds, the saving threshold, the police, health, all the other requirements.
Correct. And regarding the the fact that it is an innovative concept, and that it needs to be scalable, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Before I get to that, one of the other reasons why it's the most powerful in the world is because the permanent residency is not tied to the success of the startup. So there is a startup visa in the UK, and then I think other ones around the world where it's tied to economic benchmarks. For the company doesn't hit certain revenue within certain time frame. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I just had a pop-up that says that I'm disconnected. I'm not. And so that all needs to be verified by whatever local immigration offices. But in Canada, because we know the nature of startups do fail. And so this is built into the program from the beginning. And startups change, their cap tables change, the economics change. And that's what we want to see. We want to see those companies grow. We want to see them flourish and expand outside of Canada or get acquired. And so the permanent residency should not be jeopardized by that. And so if your company fails, your PR will continue. If your company gets acquired, your PR will continue. If you're, say you have 3 AI experts building an AI company, they come to Canada, and one of those person after they says, hey, I just saw this AI job at Starbucks, and it's like kind of my dream job. And I'm gonna leave the startup to go pursue this job at Starbucks. It's fine, right? That like their PR should continue. It should not be, because hopefully that person's taking that job in Canada and it's still going to add value to the Canadian ecosystem.
Correct. And that's great that you point that out, Ray. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so that's the beauty of it, is that there's all these different scenarios that can get addressed that protect you in the growth of your business, or hopefully it doesn't happen, the demise of your business.
Definitely, and hopefully those founders, if maybe the startup that they applied with didn't necessarily succeed, they may also do like start up another business, right? Because as entrepreneurs, you probably need to fail a few times before you can hit a unicorn. So that's great that Canada is able to understand that and focus more on bringing in the talent itself through the startup visa. So I wanted to recap a little bit, Ray, on what you were just mentioning. You said that Launch Academy has different programs, ones that are focused for the startup visa, that not necessarily focus on early stage startups. And you have another one for early stage, but that is not going through the startup visa. So can we have a short overview of those programs so that everybody here can know how they work?
Yeah, so Launch Your Startup is, as I said, for people with an idea that really need to validate, is this a good idea? Don't quit your day job until you know that this is something that you can actually build a business around and build a living off of. And that really is about customer validation, proving that business model, proving the business plan, so that you can show that there is validity to this, and there's a team that's dedicated and can raise money. And our view on that for Startup Visa is, like, personally, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, I don't think people should be moving to a new country with a brand new idea, with no network or no real traction or any of the metrics that you'd want to see in the business at that stage before somebody would invest in it. Now, some people might want to move because of personal reasons, or they don't feel that they can get access to the research or the technology that they need to prove this idea out that they have in their home market. And so there are business incubators and accelerators that can help around that. But from a Launch Academy perspective, the resources that we have are more targeted towards helping the acceleration and growth of a company, rather than the foundation and validity of these concepts. And so we created the Launch Your Startup program for those early stage ones. And then we created Maple for more of the later stage companies. And Maple as a program came about because, as I said, the Startup Visa program was started in 2013. Launch Academy didn't launch Maple until 2017. And so for 4 years, I was able to watch the startup visa program get deployed. And I could see it wasn't hitting the numbers that everybody expected. It wasn't hitting the type of entrepreneurs everybody expected. And that's because if you look at the three streams, the angels and the VCs, they are not in a position to go around the world to find companies that are going to have an immediate impact to the ecosystem. And a few of the accelerators in town that were doing that just didn't do the volume, because an accelerator that's making an investment in company can only bring in 5, maybe 10 companies a year. That's just how their programs are structured and work. And then when you look at the incubators, again, a lot of the incubators just don't have the experience to find companies around the world, or the program and infrastructure isn't in place. And there's I've seen a lot of other business incubators come in and try to do a startup visa program only to realize it's a lot of work. It's not easy. And there's a lot of screening that has to be done. There's a lot of resources that need to be put in place for the entrepreneurs to be successful. And so I created our Maple program specifically for how do we help international companies expand and grow into North America, knowing that we have all these different great startup like immigration programs, whether it's startup visa, whether it's global talent stream, express entry, that can really just expedite the growth of that company. And so our Maple program was designed so our Maple program is a 2-year program. It's designed to run in phases. So first of all, it's free to apply. You apply online. You go through our it's kind of like a 4-step screening process. First step is an online form. Second step is a more in-depth online form where you ask a lot of questions about your company and your startup. Third step is a one-on-one interview with our team. And then the fourth step is a video submission and other due diligence materials that go through a panel of judges. And the judges ultimately decide who gets to go into our Maple program. And because we don't take equity, we do charge fees, we'll get into in a second, but because we don't charge equity, our view isn't as, is this a venture backable business? Will this be a $1 billion business? Our view with our judges is, are these people building something innovative? Are they doing something that's going to change the world? More importantly, are these entrepreneurs that we ourselves will want to connect with and work with and potentially partner or support or invest in once they are in Canada? And so it's about the people, it's about the idea, it's about the vision and the dream. Not so much, is this a $1 billion business that's going to make me money? And so once you get past the screening process, you get an invitation to join the program. If you say yes, you're in a 5-phase program. And the first phase, it usually lasts about 1 month. And in this phase, what we want to do is make sure that we know that the entrepreneurs have as much information as possible to make a sound decision of, is this the right path for me? Is this the type of thing I should be doing for my company right now? Moving to another country, putting my family and my partners through this immigration process, knowing that the stage of my company requires other types of resources. And so in this stage, what we're going to do is first help you understand all the different immigration paths that there are. And so there's startup visa, there's global skills, there's express entry. If it's a matter of, well, I want to build a company in Canada, but the founders don't want to move, it's our head of engineering that needs to go to be in closer proximity to AI experts at UBC, University of British Columbia. Then you might want to look at the global skills or an intercompany transfer type scenario. But if it is the founders, and like I said, it's the most popular because it's the most powerful, it's the startup visa program. And so once you have a basic understanding of the different paths, and also one of the things we also do is, so they all get one-on-one time with these experts that we bring in. And so these immigration experts will also help them address any questions. Like if one of your co-founders has a criminal background, well, how does that jeopardize the startup visa for everybody? Or if there's somebody with a health issue or somebody that has a child with a health issue, like how do you skirt around that? And so it's really understanding what are you getting yourself into. The second one is incorporation. And so if you're at an early stage ideation company, again, these things that we're setting up for our companies are relevant. Like your incorporation are minimal. But
You're cutting off a little bit, Ray. Ray, we're losing you a
Okay,
little bit.
let me just try another spot. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah. Technical parts of it. Just to summarize in the meantime, so Ray is talking about the MAPLE program. That's the program that is aligned to the startup visa. He's mentioning that it's a program that has 2 years long. And he's talking about the 5 phases that are within that MAPLE program. Let's see if he can figure out the tech issues in the meantime. So one of the questions that I'm planning to ask Ray in a little bit is at what part of the process does the letter of support come? I mean, is it before the 2 years? Is it in the first phase? So I'll be asking that in a bit. Hey, Ray.
So, do you have me
We
back?
got you.
All right. I had to kind of
Yeah,
shift.
we have you back.
Yeah.
So
this
you
is,
were actually
the joys of
starting
working
to-
online and in international
definitely.
travels, right?
Yeah, we're all used to it, so not a problem at all.
So where
you
did
were
I lose
explaining
you?
the second phase.
Okay, so that's still part of phase 1. So the
Okay.
legal expertise. So you need to understand. So some of our companies have already raised money in the U.S. and so they have a Delaware company. Well, now you need to incorporate a Canadian company. And going back to the startup visa requirements, the Canadian company needs to show that it either controls or has, either owns or has direct control over the IP of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, if you have a company, like we've got a company that's worth $1 billion already that is using the startup visa to expand into the Canadian market. And so what does that corporate structure need to look like? And how do you make sure that it appeases the investors, but also appeases the Canadian startup visa requirements? But on top of that, what we want you to do is look at how do you maximize the benefits of being a Canadian company. So there's things like SHRED, there's things like government grants, IRAP, there's university programs that are really beneficial for Canadian companies, even like Global Talent Stream, hiring other entrepreneurs or other staff into your business can be beneficial to your Canadian company, but you need to make sure it's structured properly. And so again, if you're an ideation company, these things are irrelevant. Like you don't need to consider these things, but the type of companies that we work for, they need to take these into consideration. And then the third thing is tax and accounting implications. And so again, ideation, there's nothing there. But if you do have revenues overseas and now you're bringing that revenue in Canada, or you're trying to structure it so that you're optimizing taxation, you need to look at that. And so phase 3 is really about really understand, are you ready to go global? What does that look like? How do you position yourself to get the best of everything? And so after phase 1, at the end of it, again, that's about 1 month, you're going to make a go or no go decision. If it's a no go, no problem. All obligations end there. You don't move forward. If it's a go, then you move into phase 2. And so now phase 1 costing is 5,000 Canadian. Like I said, we're a nonprofit. We don't take equity in the companies, so we do charge fees. But because of the nonprofit nature and because of the community nature, a lot of those fees go right back into the community and the programs that you benefit from as a participant in our program. Like we just gave away $100,000 worth of scholarships to first-time entrepreneurs. We gave away $20,000 in the pitch competition last November, and so the benefits come back to you in other ways.
Nurturing the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in all of Canada, definitely.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so if you do decide to go into phase 2, now this is where the real work happens. So the first thing is to identify, okay, what is the immigration path that you're choosing? If it is startup visa, okay, we know what the path looks like. If it's global talent stream, we know what the path should look like. If it's something else, express entry, okay, let's figure that out. And then the second one is doing the incorporation, getting the Canadian company incorporated, because we want to make sure that the work permits are issued in the name of the Canadian company. We've had some companies that have tried to get the work permits under the foreign company. That just complicates things and makes things harder. And so it should all be in the name of the Canadian company. And during that time, so you're doing these things in unison. And the third thing you're doing in unison is what we call your roadmap. And the roadmap is what you plan to do with your business, where you see hurdles, where you see challenges, where you see opportunities during the first 6 months that you arrive in Canada. And that, for my team, is kind of like a blueprint of how can we help you? Who are the people we need to connect you with? How do we help the acceleration and growth of your business during that process? Once all that paperwork and everything is done and the work permits are ready, then you move into phase 3. And phase 3 is where we will give you a letter of support. You're going to apply for your work permits, and then you're in what we call the holding pattern. The holding pattern can be anywhere from 2 weeks to, we've had a company waiting 20 months now for a work permit, all because of COVID. But you're waiting for your work permits, so you can't come to Canada yet. Now, during this time, what we're going to do is we've got a number of different due diligence materials that we still need to have in place, because the Canadian government is looking at us as somebody that's vouching for your company. We need to make sure that we have proper due diligence, proper forecasts, previous income statements, and profit loss statements, but also a valid business plan, a lean canvas, or any other type of supporting documentation can show that, okay, this is not just somebody that's just trying to put an idea out there just so that they can get their permanent residency, but B, somebody that is genuinely who they are, who they say they are, and whether that's trying to weed out terrorists, weed out criminals, weed out people with other nefarious intentions. So that obligation goes on the designated support provider. Excuse me. And then from there, once we do have that information, you then move into 3B, and 3B again, 3A, 3B. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 20 months. And so what we want to do is make sure during that time, you're making the most of that time. And so the support certificate that we issue you only lasts for 6 months. And again, you go back to the origin of Startup Visa. It was 6 months because that was more than enough time for you to get your work permit and go through a 4-month accelerator program at Grow Lab or Launch Academy. And in that time, your PR would be issued by the time you exit the program.
Used to be.
But now all those timelines are out the window. Yeah. But the support statement still only lasts for 6 months, and the work permits only last for 1 year, even though they're now taking more than 1 year. So you have to apply for an extension at some point. But
if you're in Canada, you stay in Canada until that happens.
Yeah. So as long as you have a valid PR application in place, then there should really be no issues in receiving extension. The frustrating thing for us is that it still costs money, it still costs time, and it really shouldn't be that case. I've petitioned the government to change that a few times now, and they keep considering it. Like they do listen. Like the issue of the work of PRs taking more than 16 months, they're now, it's all online, and they're trying to expedite that process, and so they're actively trying to make the program better. But they do have constraints. And so 3B, 3A, 3B, we don't know how long that's going to take. And so what we try to do is make sure that there's resources and things for you to do in preparation of your arrival. And that means that you're constantly working on your business. And this is why, again, the difference between an ideation company and a company at a stage that we work with, ideation might have months where nothing happens because like they're waiting to talk to customers, or they're still trying to figure out the model. Whereas the other companies that we work with, like there's no excuse. Like you should be actively building your business. Are you ramping up customer base? Are you ramping up development? Are you hiring other talent? And what's going on with your business? How are you evolving? So we're collecting all that information during the due diligence, but also revising the roadmap as it goes. One of the other things that we have created is we call it the soft landing program, and it's designed specifically for the spouse and children. So one of the things that we found through the Startup Visa is we were always focused on the entrepreneur, but we kind of ignored the spouse and the children. But it's spouses and children. It's a family that's moving here. But what was surprising to us, like a side project or side benefit, was that like the CTO of one of our companies, his wife was a clinical nurse. And so she came and she started volunteering at the downtown East Side clinic. And then within 6 months, she was working at the clinic full time. And then now she runs a clinic. And so the spouses have their own inherent value to the ecosystem, and same with the children.
Definitely. And that's great that you consider that as well, because it does impact very highly to the founders and also how they perform if they are concentrating on other topics that are related to family issues, of course.
Exactly, like happy home, happy family, right? And so so we want to make sure that there's a soft landing program for them, like if they want to look at education, if they want to look at like, where do I find daycare, where do I find where are the schools, what's the housing situation look like. So there's all these different things that we know you need to consider before you arrive to your new home, and so we run them through that package. Then hopefully you've got your work permit in hand. You will now come to Canada in phase 4, and phase 4 starts either January, May, or September for 3 months. During that 3 months, you're going to execute against your roadmap. We've also got a module of the program that's called Fundraising in North America. So help you, if you're fundraising right now, you should have done this work ahead of time in phase 3, but most people are going to eventually need to raise funding or understand the landscape of like, what does fundraising in North America look like? And so we kind of put them through that education process. But also we know that there's all these other things that you have to do when you come to a new country. Like you have to get your healthcare, you have to get your driver's license, you have to get insurance or whatever. And so we have all these other systems in place to help you through that process. And this is why you look at the VCs that just shell their companies to us, is because they know all this work that goes in, and they're like, I can't do that. And I don't want my entrepreneur that I just put $1 million into struggling with this stuff. Like I want them to take your program because you're going to make that life easier, and it's going to hopefully turn that person around and make that company more successful quicker.
Definitely doing some hand holding that the VCs and angels, they just don't have the resources for that.
Yeah. And so when you go back to, I think I skipped over this, in 3B, that's when they'll apply for the PR. Like I said, the support survey only lasts for 6 months. And so between the end of phase 2 to the beginning of phase 4, in that time frame, you have to have applied for your PR. And now phase 4 lasts 3 months. It's over. You are now in phase 5. And phase 5 is 12 months of continued incubation and support. We've got AMAs, we've got all these different online activities, we do in-person events, we have our CXO dinners. Knowing that even though we've shown you this in phase 3 and phase 4, a lot of times our entrepreneurs are so busy with their company, so busy with that process, they don't realize that these are resources that they need. They get 12 more months to access that. And during that 12 months where they're waiting for their PR to get issued, and we're there for any support or issues that might have arisen out of that. So it is a 24-month program. I think I kind of skipped over the costing. So phase 1 is 5,000, phase 2 is 5,000, phase 3 is 5,000, 3A, phase 3B is 5,000, and phase 4 is 5,000 per month for the 3 months, because there's a lot more hands-on activity and resources involved. Plus, we give you office space in our incubator in Yaletown. So you pay minimal desk fees on a monthly basis for that. And then phase 5 is 5,000 for the entire 12 months. So total, it's 40,000 Canadian. And that is one fee charged to the company, not per individual. So if you have one co-founder, you got 5 co-founders, 5 co-founders with 5 spouses, like that doesn't matter. We're backing the company, not the individuals. And so again, at a later stage company, that's a business write-off. And so you should have the revenue, or should have the funding, and where you can take tax advantage of that business expense, because it is an expansion cost for your business. Now, your personal immigration fees, your personal housing, travel, like that's yours. But the incubator accelerator fee is something that should be considered as a business write-off. And so phase 5 is 12 months of that continuous programming that you get access to. And if you do want to access that programming after, then you can join our Launchpad program, where you have access to those, not as many resources that we offer in the Maple program, but there's still some resources out there.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation, Ray. Can we have a little bit of a recap of the 5 phases, just really quick: time, cost, and topic? just
Yep.
to do a little bit of a wrap up on the process.
So it's free to apply online. You go through the 4-step screening process. If you get accepted, you get invited into the program. You'll go through phase 1. Phase 1 is roughly 1 month. It's really about us making sure that you know what you're getting yourself into and you're ready and prepared for this journey. That's 5,000 Canadian. Phase 2 is where the real work begins. You're going to identify which immigration path you're going to go down. You're going to start your Canadian company incorporation, and you're going to build your roadmap. And when you choose the immigration path, if it is startup visa, you're preparing your work permits. If it's global talent stream, you're preparing all the different referral documents that you need. And again, all this goes hand in hand with the Canadian company establishment, because global talent stream or startup visa requires that Canadian company to be structured and set up. And the roadmap's done. And then phase 3A, so phase 2 is 5,000 Canadian as well. Phase 3A is 5,000 Canadian. In 3A, you're going to apply for your work permits, and you're going to continue the due diligence process with launch. Phase 3B is the family soft landing program, spousing program. There's a few other resources. During this entire time, you're getting access to our Launchpad program, where you're getting access to online mentors, advisors, our AMA sessions. There's lots of programming that I have in place. And then that's, again, 5,000 per 3A, 3B. Phase 4 is the actual landing in Canada once you got your PR, your work permit. That'll be either a January, May, or September cohort. That's 3 months. And that would be 5,000 per month. So 15,000 for the phase 4, plus desk fees for your team at the incubator. And then phase 5 is 5,000 Canadian, and that's 12 months of continued support and resources and online content while you're waiting for your PR.
Thank you for the summary, Ray. And one thing I want to focus on, because you've been talking about the fact that for the startup visa, you don't take early stage companies. Can you tell us really, like, briefly before we go to the Q&As, what are you looking for in the profile, like the perfect profile for Launch Academy? What do they need to have, and who are you looking for?
Yeah, so typically the companies that we are best suited to support are companies that already have funding, or they already have revenue, or they're financially stable through other means, whether that's personal investments or some other value in IP that they have, or something else. They're working in an emerging tech sector. So that's quantum computing, blockchain, VR, AR, cybersecurity, health tech, fintech, ag tech, AI, machine learning. So something that's really pushing the envelope in tech. And there should be a level of technology in their business. So somebody that's just building a studio that's creating websites, that doesn't really qualify. Somebody that's building an e-commerce platform that might be selling some really innovative things, but they're buying the innovative things from somebody else and they're using Shopify. Well, you just piecemealed other people's innovative technology together, and that doesn't qualify for our program. But somebody that's building their own version of Shopify, okay, that qualifies.
Okay, that's very clear. So breakthrough, cutting edge, emerging technology sector.
And again, when I go back to the judging process, the judges were looking, because we're not looking at, is this a venture backable business? Is this going to make us money? Because we're not equity holders. So it's not about, is this going to be $1 billion business? It's about, who are the people? Are they doing something innovative? Are they going to be a net positive addition to the Canadian ecosystem? Are these people, we kind of call it the no asshole rule, that we don't want to work with assholes. And so are these people that we would be proud to be working side by side with? Now, that being said, we will make exceptions for entrepreneurs that have previous history of success. And so an entrepreneur that has either exited a company or has been part of a team that's done something really innovative, like the former engineer at Google. Well, if you got hired as a senior engineer at Google, there's chances are you're very skilled at what you're doing, and you'd be a net positive to Canada. So if you're coming to us with an idea and a concept, we'd be more than happy to look at that. There's still a chance of rejection, but you would get past our screening process and you go to the judges. Or entrepreneurs that have sold their business, like somebody that's sold a chain of restaurants and then comes to us with a business idea on how to maximize supply chain distribution for restaurants. Okay, that's kind of logical. You've got this history in restaurants, and it's logical that you know how to build this supply chain system because you've experienced it. Somebody that's, say, a lawyer that's done really well in Iran, but is coming to Canada to start a business that creates these new Wi-Fi receivers. Well, where's your skill set? How are you going to build that? Like, even if you have a team somewhere else that's going to build the Wi-Fi receivers, you yourself, are you experienced enough to be able to take that business to the next level? That's an ideation company. That's too early. It's not to say you can't. It's just there's no proven track record. Somebody else hasn't vetted you. Somebody else hasn't invested in you, and the process isn't quite sound yet.
Yeah, like you said, maybe other designated organizations would be interested, but not specifically Launch Academy, because you're looking for, let's say, previous success and companies that are financially stable, or startups that are financially stable, like you were saying. Okay, so that's very, very clear, Ray. So we have 4 minutes left. Is it okay if we go a few minutes over, if we have a few more questions from our attendees?
Sure. I see quite a few questions there.
Okay, so let's look into the questions. So before going into the questions, I had a question myself, and it's something that we spoke about before. There's something specific about Launch Academy, and since there are so many immigration consultants and lawyers listening to us today, you communicate with the founders. How does that dynamic work with the immigration professional behind that founder, or how does that work in the application process?
Yeah, so we've had quite a few conversations and questions around this, and at the end of the day, like I said, we're for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. We need to work with the entrepreneurs. We understand that there's that professional relationship, and the consultant's business model is kind of built around, like, they are that go-between. They're doing the stuff for the client. But in our scenario, that doesn't work. You as the go-between don't know the answers. You don't live and breathe the startup, and so we need to talk to the entrepreneur. We need to understand how are they going to overcome all the big challenges and the problems that they're going to face, because we know they are. And so the consultants are more than welcome to work with them behind the scenes and support them however they want. But all of my team's interaction need to be with the entrepreneurs directly in their team, because we need to be convinced that they can do it, not that the consultant can tell the story. Because that's ultimately what you're doing as a consultant. You're telling their story. We need to talk to people that are actually going to execute the story.
Okay, so the immigration professionals would be guiding them, explaining the process. If they are somebody who completes, like, is a profile for Launch Academy, they'll just make sure that is the case, but the communication would be directly with the founder, and the immigration consultant or lawyer would be supporting them throughout the process while communicating with you. Just to sum up and
one of the ways that we look at it is so the MAPLE program is an acceleration program for technology companies, emerging technology companies, experienced entrepreneurs. The immigration portion is a byproduct of our program. Now, it's a very important byproduct. It is something that we are actively marketing and trying to convince tech entrepreneurs around the world to come to Canada and expand and grow their business here because of startup visa and all the different benefits. But at the end of the day, from a Launch Academy perspective, we are a tech accelerator. We are investors. We are entrepreneurs. We're not immigration consultants. We're not an immigration firm. We are representatives of the Canadian government that is encouraging entrepreneurs to come through this specific immigration stream or the global talent stream. And so it's a byproduct of our overall program.
Okay, understood. I have a question from Phil Mooney. He says, is there a DI community with a code of ethics or best practices specifically for the startup visa?
So there are checks and balances in place. There are review committees, peer review committees. In terms of like best practices and other things, the accelerators and incubators, we all know each other. There's conversations that go on. There's been attempts to try to create coalitions and other programs. Then COVID has come in and it's just disrupted everything. That's why you'll see that there is a lot of differences between the programs that are out there, and some have some questionable motives and tactics. Like there's others that are out there just looking at it as a cash grab, and they can just charge people for a program, charge more than they normally would have charged just because people want to start a visa, and that lowers the threshold for the number of companies that they bring in. But they all get screened at some point in time, and an IRCC has made the screening process that much more stringent. Like we've had 100% success rate with all of our companies. I'm knock on wood that continues, but it's because we have such an extensive program and there's a lot of layers to what we do. And I say that probably Immigration Canada and other people look at us as the benchmark. Like we are the gold standard because it is such a stringent program and there's so many layers to what we do. And that's why other companies that try to look at, hey, we can create a program under start a visa and make some money, realize quickly that, oh, it's not something that's just a quick money grab, because there's lots of work that goes behind the scenes. And a lot of it is manual work that requires skills and experience, especially with startups and tech companies. And so, yeah, so there is no formal
We're losing you, Ray, a little bit.
Yeah, so there are guidelines. The
Okay.
National Angel Capital Association. So they're the ones responsible for approving designated entities, and they will change the requirements on a time to time basis. But it's all by and far the same requirements, and that's on their website.
Okay, understood. I have a question from Nigel Bailey. Thank you, Nigel, for your question. Can you give us an insight into what proportion of applicants to the MAPLE program get accepted?
Yeah, so accepted for startup visa or accepted into the MAPLE program?
Into the MAPLE program.
Yeah, so on average, we get over 1,000 applicants per year, and we'll accept between 30 to 40 a year.
Yes. And that's why I was explaining at the beginning that it's very important to understand this particular webinar may be focused on knowing who can apply, but also who cannot apply, right? So that you can save some time when you're explaining that to the profile of applicants that you have. Okay. Okay, so some of the questions have to do with the pricing. 40,000 is combined for all 5 phases.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
And there are other charges on top of that are not our responsibility, like your immigration fees, your incorporation fees, like accounting fees. And I said, if the company's at an earlier stage, they shouldn't be that significant. But there's some that like we've got others where there's trademarks and IPs that are being transferred out of foreign markets, and they need to get into the Canadian market for tax purposes or whatnot, and they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in accounting and legal fees to set that up properly. And those are just their natural business costs, but those are unique cases.
Okay. We have another question. You spoke about selecting the right immigration pathway. Do you usually do that with legal professionals on staff?
Not on staff, no. So in phase 1, we connect all of our entrepreneurs to experts. So we have lawyers that are specialized in incorporating companies, managing investments in companies in the US and Canada, and so they can help with that corporate structure. We have immigration experts that give office hours, so you can talk about your cases and your personal matters with them. So like, they're not telling me, oh, I've got a family member that has this criminal history, and then how do I address this? They're talking specifically directly to immigration experts that can help them understand the path that they need to look at, or understanding that, no, this is a case that IRCC will deny, right?
Okay, understood. Perfect. So, well, time is up. We went 5 minutes over. So just to do a little bit of a wrap up, we have the Maple program with Launch Academy. It has 5 phases. 40,000 is the full investment, and basically they're looking for emerging startups in the tech sector that are financially stable, usually already having funding. And if they are early stage, they would need to prove previous success. Plus, the main objective with Launch Academy is to focus a lot in having that communication with the founders themselves. Correct me if I'm missing anything, Ray, that you want to add and share with our attendees.
Yeah, those are definitely the main points. It's emerging tech companies. We're for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. We need to have direct interactions with the entrepreneurs because we're really invested in their journey and making sure that their company is successful. Startup visa is a very key component, but the primary thing is the traction and growth of the company.
Okay, wonderful, Ray. There's some people who are asking how can they reach out? Would that be through the website, an email, or anywhere what would be the best way to reach out?
Yeah, so anybody that wants to learn more, there's all the information's on our website. The program details are all there. You can email me directly at ray.walia@launchacademy.ca. And then any of your clients that are interested, I would just recommend they themselves go through the application process and start answering the questions. If they can't answer the questions, it's either an indication that they're too early or they may not be the specific type, but that doesn't mean that they could get disqualified. We encourage them to still try to fill it out the best that they can and let our team follow up.
Okay, wonderful, Ray. Thank you so much for your time. It's been very valuable. The knowledge that you've shared here today is sometimes it's difficult to get from the website or from people who are trying to apply. So it has been very, very valuable to be able to share this information with a lot of consultants, also immigration lawyers, and different people who are looking to apply to the program themselves. On our side, regarding Joorney business plans, as many of our attendees know, we focus on doing business plans for different programs. The Startup Visa is one of them. For Launch Academy, we haven't really done many because of the nature of the profile that you're looking to receive in Launch Academy. Usually these companies already have the business plan themselves. But despite that, when we met Ray, we said, hey, you know what? This is valuable information that despite the fact that we don't prepare a lot of business plans for Launch Academy, it's something that we do want to share to be able to share the knowledge, share the content, and provide this information to everybody who registered today. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Ray, for sharing such knowledgeable content today.
Yeah, no, thank you. And like you just pointed out, the pointly is that you may not be a fit for us, but hopefully the information that I provided helps you set your clients up for success with the business that they do end up working with, because all those factors IRCC will be looking at, and you can take that into account of how you approach your client's journey through this process.
Wonderful, Ray. Thanks again. I hope
All
you
right.
have a
Thank you,
nice
everyone.
time in Dubai and take care. We'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you once again for attending our webinars. We appreciate it. Goodbye. See you soon.